Take two with the first Lions podcast, Talking Lions, whatever we call this thing, Carlos, of the summer. Dave Birkett, Detroit Free Press, along with Carlos Monarrez, doing this virtually from our homes across the state of Michigan, this lovely state. And look, we tried this a few minutes ago. I know this is being recorded by the time people see it, but those pesky internet issues got us. But we're going to knock this out because – Carlos, I think it's important for us to still talk with the fans here during the pandemic. We will be out at Lions practice starting next week. Before we do that, this is the first time we've really seen each other since this whole thing began. How's everything going for you? Family healthy, safe? Everyone doing good?
Everyone's good. Yes, thankfully, everyone's a little bored, but we're all safe and healthy. How about you?
Same thing. I think the kids are. If they go back to school, they are ready to go back to school. It's been a long time. They would like to see their friends and have some of that structure, I think, rather than have me help them along with some of their school activities. But other than that, everyone's good. So no complaint here. So, and I'm sure they're anxious for me to get out of the house because this is normally the time that we do when we're down in Allen Park every day for training camp. However, have not been here the first week and a half or so of training camp. We will be down there next Monday. And Carlos, let's just, a couple real quick things here. Once we get out on the field, padded practices start Monday. What will you be looking for?
The two main things are the top rookies that they picked in the draft. Jeff Okudah, number 3 overall pick at cornerback. You want to see how he looks. Super intense guy. If there's one guy who's probably itching to get out there and play and show what he can do and learn and get better, it's Okudah. And then DeAndre Swift, the running back who, that's the big camp battle that everybody's going to be watching, especially with padded practices. That's when the running backs can show a little bit more of what they do. So I think everybody's wondering if it's going to be him or Kerryon Johnson. I don't know if there's really going to be I think Kerryon's going to be the nominal starter if they're both healthy. But then once the season starts, whoever's more productive is probably going to get a few more carries. But just that battle will be interesting. Who goes where in the rotation, all that kind of stuff.
No, you're absolutely right. I think both those guys are going to play. They're probably going to, split the workload to a large extent. But just to see where DeAndre Swift is, when you take a running back that high in the draft, 35th overall, I think everyone and someone that roundly was thought of as one of the top running backs in the draft. I think everyone, from a fan perspective, from a media perspective, wants to see what he can do when he gets on the field. So it'll be interesting to watch him. You mentioned the camp battles. Obviously, the right guard spot is the one on the offense that's really up for grabs. I mean, both those running backs are going to play, but we don't know who's going to be starting at right guard. Jonah Jackson, their third-round pick, certainly has an opportunity to win the starting job. Lions traded up to get him in the draft for a reason. But, given some of the constraints of the offseason, we'll see how quickly he can learn the offense. Kenny Wiggins, of course, Odea Boucher, a couple journeyman types returning, and they could be in the mix there as well. Look, Matthew Stafford, I think he's going to be a focus here when we get out on the field too. I don't have any doubts about, that talent and what he's going to do when he's out there. It's just a matter of if he can stay healthy, because missed 8 games last year with a back injury, obviously played through a back injury the season before. What concerns, if any, do you have about Stafford this fall?
Yeah, I think that a lot, he's healthy supposedly right now. He says everything is fine, but he's coming off 2 serious back injuries. He's 32. You don't tend to get healthier as you get older. So I would take the under on whether he plays 16 games. That offensive line is in transition. It's not an amazing offensive line. He's going to get hit. I think at this point, hopefully they put into him that, in his mind, they cement the idea that you got to be safe, and I think it's time for a Tom Brady, get rid of that ball. You make a decision quick, whatever. It's all great. We all love to see those 40-yard deep throws that he can make and whatever, but it's like, what? Safer living's better living. He's the most important thing. And I think Chase Daniel's, a credible backup. I think it's not as bad as, as they've ignored the position in the past, but they need to really make Stafford an emphasis on your health, your safety. Be careful. The longer you're upright, the better chance we have. But I do have concerns. That first big hit. Let's see what happens if he's able to to withstand that. How about you?
No, I mean I think you're right as the season goes forward, and I think right now, look, I think we all agree, and Stafford has said, the Lions have said, he's in a good spot right now. He's healthy. The back injury did not require surgery, so it was just a matter of rest. He's to a point now where he usually is coming into camp, right? Where he's feeling pretty good, and there's high expectations for him. But look, anytime you're 32 years old and you're in your 12th season and you're coming off a couple years with back injuries, I think it's always a concern. I think you always just have to be careful, as you said, about making sure the protection is there, making sure that you don't take some of the unnecessary hits. You said you take the under. I mean, we all know that hasn't been a great bet with Stafford here the last 10 or so years. Obviously, early in his career, he had the injuries, went a really long stretch of being one of the NFL's top Ironmen, and I think they were right to fortify that backup position by signing Chase Daniel, but the truth is they're only going to go as far as Stafford takes them again.
Yeah, I think that they're, I don't know. I mean, we don't know the medicals, right? And the whole thing of it didn't require surgery. Well, it did not require surgery because he chose not to have surgery. This is a big year for him. They've got a big, he's got a big bonus coming up, right, in the off season, whatever, 10 million or so, roster bonus. This is kind of, in a way, a little bit of a make or break it year. If he'd elected to have surgery and missed most of the season, back surgery, and didn't play this, so he kind of had to play this year. So we'll never know whether he really didn't need surgery or he just opted to not have it and go for, therapy or whatever. But I would imagine, he's a tough guy, and, usually that's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing because you think you're too tough, you're invincible sometimes. And we've seen him lower his shoulder and take out, a safety or something, or a cornerback.
I like that about him. We all like that about him, though.
Well, we like that about him, except that he's going to lose those battles if he, don't forget the old, Tony Dorsett used to tell Earl Campbell, listen, it's awesome that you're doing that, but you're doing that 20 times a game, 30 times a game. The defensive backs are doing that 2 or 3 times a game. So the odds are not in your favor when you do that kind of stuff. So I hope that he's smarter about it. I hope they really ingrain it in him. As you know about Calvin Johnson, they tried for years to tell him, don't practice at full tilt in practice. Don't dive for balls. We know you're going to make those catches in the games. Save yourself. And he took years off of his career probably, by doing that. And he was like, that was the only way he knew how to practice, was that hard. And Stafford, maybe that's the only way he knows how to play, is to play that hard, play emotionally, grind for those extra yards in the middle of the field in Oakland when it's meaningless. He should be, for all of his intelligence, he should be smart about playing and protecting himself. It's just there at this point in the season, or at this point in his career, he needs to just be more cautious. If you lose a game in October, it's not going to end your season. If you lose your quarterback in October, it's going to end your season. So I hope he learns something from that, being more judicious. This is a rah-rah sport. It's a tough guy, blue collar, all that, macho stuff. Never mind, your quarterback's being paid 20-some million a year, So we'll see if he can fight his instincts and be more careful. I think that's what he is.
Yeah, his toughness is one of the things that endears him to the locker room. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon. But you're right. They need him on the field, because this offense, if the Lions are going to have success this year, I think it's going to be because of that offense. Whoever that running back is, they have a little bit of talent in the backfield. Kenny Galladay should be in for another big year. Marvin Jones in a contract year, I think he can have a nice season. TJ Hawkinson year 2, step forward. The big question mark being the right side of the line, where they have a couple new starters. That ties into what we were talking about with Matthew Stafford's health. And then just to flip this over on the defensive side of the ball real quick, that's still where the big question marks are. And up front, there's not a lot of blue chip players on that defensive front. The linebacking core, they're going to have to, and I think they will be able to manufacture some pressure with those guys. But to me, I look at what the secondary can be, and I think there's some nice young talent there in Jeff Okudah, Tracy Walker. Deron Harmon obviously has had some success in the past. I think the secondary If they, it's going to take some time to gel. That's not always the easiest thing to do, but I think the secondary could end up being the strength of this defense. And really, if that doesn't happen, I wonder if we're going to see a Lions defense like it's been the last couple of years, where it's not competitive at times, or it really is the Achilles heel that cost this team victories.
Yeah, as much as we talk about all these exotic things and amoeba defenses and hybrid linebacker, all this stuff, you win the game of the trenches. Nothing has changed about football that way. You cannot win if you have a bad offensive line or a bad defensive line. The odds are stacked so greatly upon you, and that is such a big question. I mean, last year they thought they were set, with Snacks coming back off a good season, and it all fell apart. So they're going to have to, I don't know if this staff is smart enough to figure something out, or someone's going to step up who we can't really imagine is going to be amazing, but they need to do something, find a way to get some kind of production out of that defensive line, because, as we're seeing even now, I mean, I think there's a transition more to running the football now in football. That people are in the NFL, they're folks, they see the Packers are becoming more of a run team, run first team. You're gonna have to be able to. You can't stop the run. They're just gonna run all of you all day. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to pass. So as good as your secondary is, if you're not passing the ball, you can't put 11 dudes on the line and try to stop the run. So it's gonna be their biggest challenge. Is there hope from, in your perspective, from the defensive line? Is there something they can do to fortify that? Maybe, what we see sometimes is the free agent that we didn't expect coming. There's still transition time. It's going to be more difficult during COVID to bring guys in and whatever, more movement or free agency, but is that a possibility?
Well, to me, I don't know that there's anyone out on the street that's going to help them, or any move to be made. I think, if there's something that maybe we're undervaluing on the defense, maybe it is that the versatility of the linebacking core and what they can do there to really, because the front seven is, it all works in unison there. And look, if Jamie Collins is lined up at, the Devon Kennard spot from last season, if he lines up there one snap, and then the next snap he's in the middle of the defense and it's Jared Davis over there, or Jared Davis is blitzing from the other side, Jelani Tavai coming in off. I think there's enough options with what they can do in that linebacking unit that maybe they can play tricks on some quarterbacks. Maybe they can do some different things that we're not giving them enough credit for right now to make that front seven difficult, not just to run on, but also to protect, against rushing the passer. So, and I think, they need to find something like that, in order to, because I think it will take a little bit of time. Okuda is going to be a really good player, but you can't expect him week one to step in and be a Pro Bowler. So there is going to be that learning curve early in the season. And for that reason, I think it's important that the continuity of the guys the Lions brought in with Patriots ties, Danny Shelton, Jamie Collins, guys that know this defense. I think it's imperative that they get off to a fast start. And that's something we have not seen in the last 2 years. Jets game 2 years ago, last year against the Cardinals, when it looked like they get off to that fast start and then they crumbled in the fourth quarter. It's imperative for the Lions defense to start off strong this season if this team is going to have the turnaround that a lot of us think is they're capable of. At least I don't know if we think they're everyone thinks they're going to win 10 or 12 games, but I think when I look at this team and what there is in the division, I don't think there's a reason why they shouldn't be contending at least for a playoff spot.
I think, also, Bob Quinn likes to pull off trades, obviously with the Patriots. He enjoys that. He's got the red phone hotline to Bill Belichick's office on that. But I would really expect them to maybe really be looking hard at somebody that, on the trade block, the snacks thing worked for them for a season. So someone who's in a contract year, whatever they're thinking, but you're right. I mean, maybe if Shelton or someone like that steps up, they can make a difference. But we'll see quickly how that defensive line is going to be.
And I think, obviously there's the whole COVID cloud that's hanging over things now. It's going to be interesting to see when we get out on the field, or when we get to watch what's happening on the field, what measures are in place. It's impossible, of course, to practice in a social distance fashion, but to see some of the things that they do to help make that a little more a part of things already. They've done a ton in the buildings. I give the Lions organization credit for everything how they've handled the entire offseason. Really, I think they've done an A+ job with just about everything. So moving in the right direction. We're at a point right now where we're shooting this here on Tuesday morning where they haven't had a positive COVID case in more than a week, and so that's really since they got in the building. So that's a good thing. But that's the cloud that's going to continue hanging over the NFL's head and the Lions' head.
Let me ask you, I mean, it's almost a certainty, as you saw with Stafford with the false positive and all that. And if it has been a regular season week, he would have missed a Sunday game. So do the Lions, how do you like their depth? I mean, if they do end up losing, especially a skill player, a Hawkinson or a Galladay or whatever for a game, I mean, do they have depth?
I think it's inevitable, that it's going to happen across the league. You just don't want widespread outbreaks like we've seen in baseball where it really forces a team to shut down. I mean, again, I think the NFL and the Lions in particular have taken good steps to help themselves and try to prevent some of those outbreaks. But look, it frankly just depends, where it is and what position it impacts, what sort of player it impacts. If it impacts Stafford and your quarterback, I mean, the chances of you winning those games are, look, it's better with Chase Daniel, but again, as we talked about earlier here, Stafford's the guy that's going to carry this team a long way. So, certainly they have more depth at some areas than others. I mean, even though the offensive line is a question to me, I think there's some good depth there with some veterans that have some experience. Kenny Wiggins, Boucher, we mentioned, sort of competing with Jonah Jackson, even Terrell Crosby, who we saw play well in spot duty at times last year. So if you need to get through a week, that's something that you can do with some of those guys up there. But it's the longer term issues, I guess, where maybe the depth could be a problem.
Where do you like the depth the most on this team?
Where is it best? It's a good question. Well, look, I think at the cornerback spot, I think they to sign Darryl Roberts from the Jets. I think that's a starter that can fill in, any sort of given week for you. Again, on the offensive line, the interior of the offensive line, especially, you have some guys that can fill in. If you need to in the offensive skill spots, we talked about the running back, situation early. Look, you got three pretty reliable receivers in Galladay, Marvin Jones, and Danny Amendola, and two tight ends that you at least feel comfortable, about throwing out there, Jesse James and Hawkinson. So if you find out on a Tuesday that, you're going to be without somebody for the week, you have enough depth on the offensive skill positions that you can adjust and you can adapt that game plan to attack your opponent in different ways. It's a different thing if you're traveling on the road and you get to your hotel on a Saturday and you find out that you're without one of those guys, then the game plan is in. And so I think that's part of what's going to make this season so interesting is that even though I think the Lions are more equipped to handle some of those issues this year than they have been in years past, there's so much uncertainty about what lies ahead that we just, I mean, if I was in Vegas, I would be betting the underdogs because you never know what's going to happen in a given week or with the season based on everything that's going on in the world.
Do you think this was like a really genius move last year with Stafford in Chicago where Driscoll had to step in at the last moment? Like this prepared them. They foresaw all this to prepare for a last second.
No. Look, I mean, they should have had the backup quarterback position better fortified last year, and they didn't. And they brought in 11 different guys, 10 different guys in Stafford, throughout the course of the year. That's absurd. And that's why you go out and you spend $15 million on Chase Daniel to make sure that he's here for a couple of years. So yes, they're better at that spot, but they shouldn't have been in the position that they were in last year with it. And even having said that, and I think everyone would agree, Chase Daniel, he can get you through a week, maybe he can get you through two. But if you lose your quarterback for a half a season like you did last year, you're still going to be up a creek if you're the Lions. And I think that goes for most teams. I mean, there's so much. This sport is so dependent on quarterback play, and team success is so dependent on having a good quarterback that if the Lions don't, if something were to happen to Stafford this year, either physically or he were to regress, they'd be in for a long season. I don't foresee that. I think Stafford, could be having I think he's at the stage of his career where he's going to be playing good football for the balance of the season as long as he's on the field, and that's the biggest reason why I think the Lions are, they have the potential to be one of the better bounce back stories in the NFL this year.
Interesting with Stafford, especially the health aspect of him.
And I'm concerned about it. Don't get me wrong, because it's a back, right? So you have to be concerned about it. But I just think, from a skill standpoint, factor, like he's where, a lot of teams would want their quarterback to be. But absolutely, especially given the state of the offensive line on the right side with the questions there and no time for that, that line to really gel, having not had an offseason, it definitely does concern me a little bit itself. So. All right. I don't know. I thought maybe I froze there for a sec, but regardless, so let's wrap this up here. We just wanted to try this. I guess this is the test run of this. Hopefully this one works out good for everyone with limited technological disruptions. Hopefully we can continue to bring these to you guys from our home offices around the Metro Detroit area. But we've got another Zoom to get on here with Matthew Stafford here shortly. So let's sign off for now. Carlos, it's good seeing your face, kind of, I guess. But wish the family well. Hopefully, everyone continues to stay safe and enjoy having the girls home from school this fall while you're trying to do it.
You too, Dave. I hope you and your family are well.
Appreciate it. All right, that'll do it for us. For Carlos Monarrez, I'm Dave Birkett. Birkett.com.